Hello, this is Marika Lamoureux, and this is another demonstration of how to hand calculate a one-way between subjects ANOVA. I am going to assume that you have already watched the first video on how to hand calculate a one-way between subjects ANOVA, and in this video I will give much less explanation of every step of the process. And if you are feeling like you need more explanation, I encourage you to go back and watch the first demonstration again. This video is really intended to be just something else that people can use to look at to see all of the math and all of the steps, but without all of the explanation. So we will begin. And how many of you, when you think about hand calculating a one-way between subjects ANOVA, feel like this? I know that perhaps it is a horrifying thought for you, but we will get through it and it will be okay. So here's the sample problem. I'm not going to read it to you. Go ahead and pause this and read it to yourself, and when you're ready, unpause the video and we'll start talking about how to solve this ANOVA. Here's our data, and the first thing that we need to do is to state the null and alternative hypothesis. For this data set, the null hypothesis is that the month does not influence the Dow Jones Index and that the mean for January, March, June, and September will be the same. The alternative hypothesis is that month does influence the Dow Jones Index and that the means for January, March, June, and September will not be the same. So now that we know what our null and alternative hypotheses are, we are going to start calculating the ANOVA, the F value. And here's a list of formulas. In this video, I am not going to continuously take us back to this formula sheet throughout the calculations. So if you want to copy these down, please pause the video and copy them down, or get out your textbook and have the formula sheet so that you can follow along the formulas in the text. So now we're going to calculate the sum of squares within. So we need to calculate the sum of squares for each month, which I've already gone ahead and done. And then we're going to sum across all of those sum of squares for each month. So we need to know the sum of squares for January, March, June, and September. We sum across those, and that looks like this. Now we're going to calculate the sum of squares between. So again, I'm not going to explain what all of those letters mean. If you need more explanation, please reference the first video that I made. So what that looks like for this data set is you need to know the total value for all of the January scores squared over the N for January, and so on and so forth, all the way over to the total value of all the scores squared over the total number of the scores. So this is what it looks like when you actually go through and calculate all the T's, and I filled in the table so you can see that the T's are just totaling down each column. Once you have the T's, you can calculate G very easily. So now we have all of our T's and our G's, we know the N's, and we can calculate the sum of squares between. And that looks like this for this data set. Now we know the sum of squares within and the sum of squares between, and we're going to calculate sum of squares total so that we can use it to check our math and make sure that we haven't made any math mistakes so far. So the sum of squares total, you're just squaring the value of each score, and then you're subtracting out G squared over N. And this is what it looks like for this data set. And we're going to compare that with the sum of squares within plus the sum of squares between, and thank goodness the two values are the same, which means that we haven't made any math errors and we're feeling very good about ourselves. And as an interesting little side note, when I was making this example, I was going through and hand calculating all of this, and I actually did find a difference between my sum of squares total when I calculated it the two different ways, and it told me that I had made a mistake. And so I was able to go back through and find the mistake and fix it. So really, calculating the sum of squares total these two ways does tell you when you've made a mistake, and you can go through and find it. Now we know our sum of squares, and we can easily figure out the degrees of freedom. So we can calculate our mean squares, which are going to be sum of squares divided by degrees of freedom. So the mean square between is the sum of squares between over degrees of freedom between, and it's 53.01 over 3, which equals 17.67 for this data set. And here's the mean square within for this data set. And once we have mean square between and mean square within, we can calculate f. And our f is 0.80 for this data set. And we can also calculate our eta squared. And now we have calculated everything that we need to calculate in order to determine whether there is a significant effect of our independent variable, which is the month of the year, on the dependent variable, which is our Dow Jones index. So here's our F table, and we know the degrees of freedom between and the degrees of freedom within. That puts us in that column and row for this table, and we can follow those two together, and we come on an F critical value of 3.49. So now we can compare our F calculated value to our F critical value. So we know our F calc and our F crit, and our F critical value is smaller than, or I'm sorry, our F calculated value is smaller than our F critical value, which means that we fail to reject the null, we retain the null, and we fail to support the alternative hypothesis. And if we look back at what our null and the alternative hypotheses were, that means that our analysis found that month does not influence the Dow Jones index. And here's all of the information that we need to write up an APA-style report of our results. And this is what that sentence looks like. So I know this was a much faster explanation of how to calculate a one-way between subjects ANOVA, and I hope that this has been a nice second demonstration without as much detail. But again, I encourage you, if you need more explanation, to watch the first demonstration, and you will get more information, and I will talk you through every step in far more detail.